Anyang City recently underwent a major transformation, with the restructuring of the Qinglong gang affecting several local gangs in the area. The authorities raided all of them that were not under the control of the Qinglong gang. Although the gang had been cleaned up, around half of them remained, making reorganization difficult. Everyone was still wary of the new boss. After all, it was he who called the cops to raid the gang. Since then, Xiao Qingrong has been investigating the gang's business, which took almost a month of paperwork organization even with full cooperation from the surviving members. After a period, the staffs of the gang's important companies were restructured, the leaders of each firm were employed as business experts, and public meetings were held once a month. As a president who used to spend millions of dollars per minute, Xiao Qingrong preferred to delegate authority to people who were capable. Isn't it easier for you to delegate tasks as president? What is the point of trying to accomplish everything yourself? After dealing with these issues, Xiao Qingrong proceeded to see his newly assembled laboratory. Because Ceirin worked with the government, his personal accounts were ultimately made public. With the exception of the funds taken by his daughter, he had several other accounts brimming with cash. Qingrong's laboratory was created with one of their funds, and now that he has a grandson, his old money has some use. Qingrong was in a good mood when he entered his laboratory. He was eventually alone after eliminating everyone from the laboratory. He had already counted Ceirin's fingers. They were fairly simple to manufacture, according to the simulation. Xiao Qingrong spent more than a month testing these 2 fingers in his lab. After all, there were faults in the tools in reality that were not present in the simulation. Since no one had seen Xiao Qingrong in a while, Ceirin dispatched someone to check on him. "Brother, have you received any sleep lately?" When she saw her brother, Xiao Qinghuan was taken aback. With his pale skin and bloodshot eyes, he resembled a corpse. She was already concerned after not seeing her brother for a month, but seeing his current state perplexed her. How long has he gone without sleeping? Although Xiao Qingrong appeared to be an undead with his pale skin and red eyes, his eyes were filled with passion. Why? He finished the high-sensation mechanical prosthesis because he had done it before. "I'm completely fine." Xiao Qingrong was fatigued after finishing the mechanical prosthesis with great sensitivity, but he didn't say anything. "You said Grandpa is waiting for me, correct? Let's get started." Xiao Qingrong had no idea how eager he appeared at the time, which frightened Qinghuan. She was in college at the time, so she wasn't at home every day. The two arrived at Ceirin's villa shortly. Ceirin was taken aback when Qingrong appeared. "What kind of research are you conducting, child, to end up looking like this?" Xiao Qingrong removed a box from his bag, sat in front of Ceirin, and then spoke. "Stretch out your left hand, Grandpa, and you will know on the side." Liang Ceirin peered at Xiao Qingrong, unsure what the tiny person was doing. Xiao Qingrong, in Liang Ceirin's opinion, was becoming increasingly difficult to handle. Ceirin reached out his left hand for no apparent reason. For the first time, Xiao Qinghuan was taken aback when he saw Ceirin's fingertips. After all, such a disfigured hand would undoubtedly frighten people who had never seen it before. Xiao Qingrong didn't care and took Ceirin's hand with his left while opening the box with his right. Inside the box were 2 silver fingers, which looked like fragments. The index finger was taken out first. After removing it from the box, Qingrong gently stroked the numbers on top of the prosthesis. The numbers were on the nanometer scale, invisible to the naked eye. Even with an advanced microscope, it was still quite difficult to see. It formed the number 7543 in a fraction of a second. In a flash, the short silver mechanical prosthesis slowly merged with Ceirin's index finger. Everyone watching was taken aback, perplexed, and intrigued by what they had just experienced. This. Despite having seen a lot in his life, the scene in front of him horrified him. He couldn't help but move the icy prosthetic limb when it made contact with his finger, and it did. He could even feel Qingrong's hand temperature. It was absolutely unthinkable. "This is what I've been working on in the lab, Grandpa, high-sensitivity mechanical prostheses. You can do a number of things after installing it." Qingrong was extremely grateful to Xian Yi. Despite the fact that the two began as an interchange of interests, Qingrong grew to enjoy the old man and quickly loved him like family, which is why he chose to treat Xian Yi by building the mechanical prosthesis. It began to combine again once the other prosthetic was placed on Xian Yi's middle finger. He let go of his hand after watching the two prostheses properly fuse with Xian Yi's fingers. "Grandpa, try moving around and getting a feel for it. If anything feels off, I can adjust it." Qingrong spoke quietly, as if he hadn't done anything unusual. When Liang Xian's gaze fell on Xian Yi's hands, he realized it was impossible to remove the prostheses because they looked just like Xian Yi's fingers, only silver in color. Xian Yi had never expected to feel anything at his fingertips again. Initially, his index finger was severed in order to feed the dogs. Later, he threw his middle finger into the sea. They were unpleasant recollections, but they also inspired Xian Yi to keep going. Xian Yi regained control and resumed his attention to his fingers. It still felt unbelievable. He rubbed them softly, feeling the heat from his skin. He couldn't stop himself from reaching for the teacup. He touched the warm surface, and his hands couldn't stop shaking. He continued to play with them, constantly opening and shutting his hand. After a few minutes, Xian Yi felt as if the prostheses were already a part of him. They could sense not only temperature but also the sensation and texture of objects, just like his genuine fingertips. "Qingrong, how can this prosthetic replicate such behaviors?" "It almost. These prosthetic limbs could not be sold on the market. It used to be really uncomfortable during the installation of the prosthesis, but not this time. It was strangely natural." As he gazed at Xiao Qingrong, Xian Yi felt very complicated. He didn't anticipate his grandson being able to make such delicate equipment. How much change might he bring to the world if he already knew how to manufacture such advanced technologies? I won't get into the details, but the prosthetic was bonded with a specific chip. It gives the user a sense of touch that is comparable to that of genuine flesh. This type of prosthetic is relatively simple to construct. Assume you use this technology to develop another limb, like a leg. You will have no difficulty playing sports after installing it. This is the study that Xiao Qingrong conducted. He wouldn't have any competition, despite the fact that it was a standard prosthesis with sophisticated technology. Xiao Qingrong's gaze was drawn to Liang Xian. It was not only for Xian Yi but also for the higher-ups to whom Liang Xian would report. The military spends a lot of money on sick and disabled personnel. There would be a lot of possibilities if they could employ these prosthetics. The military would be overjoyed if these people regained their combat abilities. Sure enough, Liang Xian was giddy with delight. He remembered his previous comrades. The majority of the disabled were genuine soldiers. Anything might happen on the battlefield. You could lose bits of yourself as well as your life. Liang Xian's teammates had also lost a lot during the battle, and he was filled with envy as he saw how easily Xian Yi manipulated his new fingers. For the time being, I intend to continue developing new prosthetic limbs. Get everyone in the gang who is disabled to come with me. I'll give them the newly designed prosthesis. When the time comes, I'll launch a prosthetics company called 7543. Are you okay with this, Grandpa? Why shouldn't Xian Yi be okay with this? The prosthetic limb in his hand was doing admirably. It was more visible in person. It had enormous market potential and would impact the lives of many people. Xian Yi knew he wasn't incorrect because he had been through so much. This child was born for greatness, not for a dungeon. What about Xiao Qingrong? He was listening to the investigation report, 618. I'm sorry, host, the machine has just identified evidence of rebirth in this universe. He's the one who's been stealing your ideas.